o'clock this morning. And it's time now. We're going to go over to Australia.
You're listening to the Radio Wammo Breakfast, only on Kiwi.
Yes, because it is the beginning of another month and into the nice old spring season, as it very much is reflecting outside. We're going to go and dig through another issue of Mindfood magazine, this time with Michael McHugh, the editor of Mindfood. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, how are you?
Good. Is it lovely and spring-like in Australia as well?
It's a bit grey and overcast, actually, to tell you the truth.
Well, you're on the wrong side of the Tasman.
I am.
On the front of this issue, we've got Seal and Heidi.
Yeah, our first couple. We've never done a couple before on a cover.
Now, they look very much in love, don't they?
Yeah, they are. Well, our associate is Donna Duggan, did the interview with Seal, and she came back sort of floating into the office, and, it was, oh my God, he's so gorgeous moment. And he pretty much just talked about how much he loved Heidi the whole time. So it was a very good interview, and I think they are very much in love.
Yeah, and actually, a kind of a sort of a little bit of a theme running through the magazine this month, straight off from the editorial, where you talk about being in love as well.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it. I kind of believe if you haven't got love in your life, what's it all about? I think...
Is this the big question? Is this the big question of what is life about?
Well, it can be, I guess, but I really do believe if you haven't experienced that at some stage in your life where you don't have it, it might be a fairly sad life that you're living.
Gosh, there's some really empty people walking around on this Monday morning after hearing that.
It makes them feel really good about themselves. No, it's kind of an interesting theme because we spoke to lots of different couples, so, brothers and sisters and twins and mothers and daughters and fathers and daughters, and about working together, because I think in this day and age with people losing their jobs or taking redundancy, there are many more different kind of tie-ups, particularly when it's within a family of people working together. So there is, I guess, a couple theme running through it.
Yeah, no, because I was trying to work that out this morning with someone else who was saying there's a saying for the couple who plays together stays together, but there isn't a saying for the couple who works together, is there?
No, I think you've really got to, Michelle and I, my wife and I obviously work together, on Mindfood, and we actually really have to stop ourselves talking about Mindfood all the time, particularly in front of the kids and stuff, because they just get sick of it. Yeah. But, at work, we're talking about them and what's going on in our family, and again, we've kind of got to stop talking about that, because it's a big open plan office, and really, I don't think staff really need to hear about, Henry's soccer result on Saturday.
So how do you find that balance? How do you strike the balance?
We tend to talk a lot in the car going to work and coming away from work. Yeah. No, look, it works, and it works for us. And it's kind of an old age thing, way back in history, lots of couples work together, and I think a lot of successful partnerships throughout history of, couples working together. It works for us, but we're very different in terms of personalities and skill set too, so we kind of complement each other.
Yeah. Because some people would tear the hair out and start beating on each other.
And couples have said that to me, that, oh, God, I could never work with my wife, or I could never work with my husband. And, that's their thing, and I guess that's cool, and then they're doing their own thing. But for us, it does work.
And you've, in the magazine, you've featured couples on both sides of the Tasman that are doing this. Yeah,
well, that's right. Well, we wanted to get a really nice cross-reference in terms of, I don't know, I think also the idea of a couple has changed, and it's not really just married couples, and that's why for us it was important to show a range of different, people working together. So like the mother and daughter who own a restaurant, and they're originally from Taiwan, and they'd gone through a lot of struggles, I think, to kind of build that restaurant up. Yeah. But same with the father and daughter team out of Dunedin, the fashion designers. In fact, when we interviewed them, they were in China buying silk and all sorts of stuff. So I don't know, there are a lot of really interesting people out there doing interesting things, and we just wanted to kind of bring all that together. It's often not just about an individual off doing it.
Very true. And you're carrying on that theme also with money and relationships as well, about how money creates issues inside relationships.
Yeah, well, we've worked pretty closely with the BNZ Bank on this, because I think a lot of times, you can read a lot of things in media that perhaps aren't founded, and it's one person's idea. So we've got lots of different viewpoints in and around working together and what needs to happen from a financial point of view, because it's all very well having an idea or a concept and running off and, working on something you're very passionate about, but unless it's sounded, financially, and you've got really sound financial advice, it's not going to work.
Isn't it? It's right up there with moving house and I guess the loss of a child, I think, as a major cause of breaking up.
Yeah, look, I can see that.
Yeah.
Particularly early on, there's a horrific statistic, isn't there, of how new businesses don't survive, first 6 months and then the first year hurdle.
Yeah.
But it's like anything in life. I think you've just got to keep going. You've got to keep doing what you're good at, really believe in it, and make sure you're sharp. And the other thing is, I'm a great believer of always do what you know. Don't run off and, gosh, I'd love to own a restaurant one day because it looks so much fun. I'm sure it is, but there would be a lot of work. But unless you've got that experience in that area, I think you'd find it doubly hard.
And so if your partner makes a big mistake in business and loses a whole bunch of money, then you've got to learn how to forgive them. And that's the next topic, also in the magazine, the power of forgiveness. Tell us about what you've learnt here about forgiveness.
I came out of a corporate life, so I came out of having 360 staff, a corner office, and a fairly healthy ego.
Yeah. And
I had to learn personally to kind of realise that it's not all going to happen around me. I've actually got to make it happen, for us. Because when it's smaller and it's just us and it's just the team, you've really got to roll your sleeves up. So, you don't know about things like security and, we were broken in twice and lots of little stuff that just, you don't see coming and you don't see happen, but you've kind of got to be prepared for it. So I think you've got to be very resilient.
Yeah.
But forgiveness, you're always going to make a cock up or you're always going to muck it up as you go along. But that's great learning ground as well. And just as long as you do learn from it. And, I think there is stuff that we've done. I think we're much sharper now in terms of getting that product to market.
This issue also says that forgiveness has a link to health and well-being.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, and you might know of some people that, are really angst around certain situations or certain people or certain things that have happened in their lives.
Yeah.
And, I know when I come across those sort of people and they're still harping on stuff that's happened, I don't know, way back when.
Yeah.
That you got to learn to just let it go and to kind of forgive and move on, because otherwise it just eats away at you. And I think, it's an interesting little article that it's a fairly small one. It's only a 2-pager, but it is key to relationships because people do get things wrong, and I think you've got to be able to learn that art of forgiveness.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, moving on from relationships, you had the amazing pleasure of going to Gabrielle Coco Chanel's famous apartment in Paris.
Yeah. That was very cool.
Yeah.
Well, that was absolutely amazing. That was. I actually hadn't seen the movie at that stage, but having been in magazines for many, many years, and Chanel being an advertiser, I'd learnt a lot about Chanel and her background and her history. So it was extraordinary going to see that, and it's exactly the way she left it. The only thing they've changed is the carpet. And they'd painted the walls, but they're exactly the same colour as when she died in 1971.
Yeah.
It's very different, like her salon and that is like her colours are black and white and beige, and that's very simple and clean-lined, and Karl Lagerfeld has sort of redesigned those. But when you go into the apartment, it's very opulent, it's very rich, and, there are Chinese screens from the 13th century, and then most extraordinary chandelier, that's all been handmade that she commissioned. She actually bought a lot of artwork or supported a lot of artists. So, her friends were Picasso and Dali, and it was extraordinary standing in that apartment and thinking of all the people that had come through those doors and who she had entertained. She actually lived across the road at the Ritz.
Oh, right.
But this is where, that's where she slept, but this is where she sort of lived, if you like. So it's actually quite small. It's only 4 rooms. But it's absolutely beautiful. It's, the big sofa there where a lot of the advertising shots and campaigns have been shot for magazines across the years. But, like in the magazine, we've given it lots of images and pictures and obviously the story of me going in there. But I've got to say, it was one of those moments that you kind of look into someone's world, and it is extraordinary.
Is it up there with the top 5?
I think for me it is, actually.
Wow. There you go.
And I've got to say, I'd never... Before I'd done it, I don't think I would have thought it would have been. But, you know, as you walk along that street and, you know, you look across at the Ritz and there was the door that Princess Diana came out, you know, before she got in that car, and then you realise the people that have kind of walked up those stairs, and the, you know, the fifth step that she sat on as the models walked past. And she was very superstitious, Chanel. And so the number 5, you know, for example, the coffee table in front of the sofa, she had 5 little silver boxes. You know, she was extraordinarily superstitious. So, and I think, to be really honest, she was a bit of a tyrant. But to just step into someone's world and see it, it was really extraordinary.
Well, excellent. Well, that's all in the latest edition of Mindfood magazine. It's got Seal and Heidi Klum on the front. Thanks so much, Michael.
Thanks. Have a good week.
You too. Michael McHugh, editor of Mindfood.